the presentation tonight is going to be about how can you get emails from, the word I like to use is scraping the web or scraping various websites. And some people might call that spamming, and some people might not call that spamming. But just in case, we wanted to at least make you aware of the existence of the CAN-SPAM Act, which are the set of rules defining what's spamming and what's not spamming. I'll come back to that in a minute. We're going to give you a brief review of what the difference is between B2B and B2C. Also, organic versus inorganic list building. Actually, this is the wrong outline slide. We're not going to talk about CRMs and so on. But anyway, those 3 slides will cover the beginning of this presentation. So the CAN-SPAM Act is literally a law. The link for it is at the bottom of the page there, which I'm sure you'll all read and memorize. But it basically, the key points at the beginning of the act is never use deceptive headers, from names, reply to addresses, or subject lines. So that's the official rule. Always provide an unsubscribe link. The unsubscribe link must work for at least 30 days after sending, and you must include your physical mailing address. And then it also gives a definition of what is spam, what the penalties and risks are, and how to avoid being a spammer. So there are these rules which we all do follow, and we don't like it when people spam us. And that's how you can tell if you are or are experiencing spam. The difference between B2B and B2C, you probably all know. B2B is business to business. So if you have a business and you want to sell your widget to another business, that's considered B2B. And that's, you'll know why I'm making that distinction a little bit later. And B2C is if you have a product or service that you want to sell to a consumer. B2C is business to consumer. And there are different tools available for each. B2B has one set of tools available. B2C has another set of tools available. So again, just to let you guys know, there are those differences. And I think I've made these words up. I have never seen them used before, but I wanted to clarify the difference between organic and inorganic list building. So inorganic list building is when you have somebody come to your, one way or the other, get them to come to your website and click on a subscribe to my newsletter button. When they do, they give you their name and email address, and by definition, permission to use their name and email address. Or you do Facebook advertising or LinkedIn advertising or some other Google AdWord advertising, and people proactively come to your page, whatever page that may be, and proactively give you permission and access to their email address and name and so on. That's organic. Inorganic is what we're going to be talking tonight, which is they haven't given you permission because you found their email addresses on various websites, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or the World Wide Web or something like that. And you're going to be able to collect those lists of names. If you could close that door, that would be appreciated. Collect those lists of emails and then do something with those emails. And what you do with them is another whole conversation. We'll get to some of that today. But that's what I mean by inorganic list building. So tonight, we'll be dealing almost entirely with inorganic list building. Does that make sense? Okay, so I just made a very short list here of what I call steps for a successful cold email campaign. Cold means that you're using emails from the methods that I just mentioned that they have not proactively given you permission to send them email. So first of all, you want to build the best email list you can, and that's what we're going to spend most of the evening talking about, using a variety of web scraping tools and the best sources for your particular needs. Next, verify that those emails are in fact valid emails, because we found about 20% roughly, Susan?
Yeah, it went from you have the numbers 400 and something down to 320.
Yeah, maybe more than 20% of the emails that we found were in fact not valid. And so you don't want to be sending emails to an invalid address. That's just a waste of time and money for everybody. And once you have all these emails, you want to be crafting your message very, very carefully to maximize your end result. and that's highly dependent on your product, your service, and the methodology you're going to be using to send those emails. And if possible, offer something of value that's free to the prospect, asking them to sign in to get that get a free download. And when I wrote this, I thought using plain text email would be more effective to get better results than HTML email, but actually we're going to show you an example where that's not the case. Developing a subject line with maximum impact. In case you don't know it, there's lots and lots of online headline analyzers, and that will help you really target headline. In fact, Dennis, you used one, right? And it changed the results of your mailing by a dramatic amount, right? Yeah, so they're really quite useful. And of course, use an email tool which will not harm your email reputation. And we're going to talk about some of those tools tonight. So as I said at the beginning, I'm going to teach you these methods. I'm not endorsing them. I'm just letting you know that they exist in case you want to use them. They do work. So here's a list of some of the tools that we used to collect email. We used a tool called Instant Facebook Lists, and there are the links for each one of them. Scrapebox is another one. LinkedIn, everybody knows LinkedIn, but there's a tool called Duck's Soup. We didn't use Google Alerts, but I want to mention that to you in just a moment. To verify the email addresses, a tool that I like is called brightverify.com. And if you're going to be sending business-to-business email, there's a service in Canada called Clickback, and their entire business is about helping you send emails business to business to get around all the, how can I say this, not get around the spam issues, but they're designed to send out cold emails, and they have all the methodology to do that. And if you're going to be sending business to consumer email, there's a tool that we found called AB Bulk Mailer, and we actually used it, and it's terrific. And it allows you to send emails to cold email addresses in such a way as it gets a very high deliverability rate, and it doesn't affect your spam profile. So those are just a tiny smattering of tools that are available to you. Just Google cold email, and you'll find tools and methods and techniques and courses and videos, and there's an entire universe of people. Yes, sir, you have a question. Please use the microphone if you don't mind.
Don, doesn't that violate against the CAM Spam Act?
Well, that's what I said at the beginning. I'm just teaching you methods. You can choose to use them or not, and you'll see the results that we get here. As one of my friends says, there's a difference between legality and reality and legality. So I'm just teaching you the methods. If you want to spend, I don't have this slide here, but I will tell you, if you follow the traditional methods of Facebook advertising, pay-per-click advertising on Google, all the AdWords on Google, getting people to come to your website to fill out the form. If all those methods are available to you, you probably all know them or know some of them. It's a perfectly valid thing to do if you're willing to wait 6 months to a year to build a significant enough list. Perfectly okay. Or you can use some of these methods, get your business started, get some revenue coming in, and then switch over to the so-called organic list building technique. So I've been a business owner for 37 some years, and if I want to start something, I want to get it started quick. I don't want to have to wait 6 months. So, I meant to mention Google AdWords. I mentioned that before. I mean Google. What the hell is it called?
Alerts.
Google Alerts. Does anybody know what Google Alert is? More people than I thought. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what a Google Alert is, if you have a business where your customers routinely promote themselves by sending out press releases or notices of their products in one form or another, just go to google.com/alerts, and you can set up an alert which says, for this keyword or key phrase, if anything is indexed by Google, they will send you an email, either daily either in real time or an index at the end of the day or index at the end of the week of all of the emails that meet your keyword criteria. And you can have as many of those alerts as you can imagine. And in my previous business, I had like 100 and some odd alerts. My particular business looked for products and services that other people were building literally all over the planet Earth. So every time somebody press release, they'll often identify themselves, their company, their product, identify usually an email, a contact name, a phone number, and all of that. And that's how we built a 40,000 name email list. Took a while, but and that's entirely free. So that's another method for collecting emails. If your customers routinely post press releases or something on the internet that Google would index, so it's a really powerful tool if you don't use it. Okay, let's see here. Am I finished? Okay, so I talked about steps for successful cold email campaigns. So yes, you could say this is spam, except if you follow some of those rules that I mentioned before, it actually isn't. Okay, so I'm now going to introduce Susan Sullivan. Susan, come on down. So as I mentioned before, we had 3 of our members volunteer their business to us to help develop, not to help, but to create email lists for each one of them. They have very unique businesses, and we're going to start with Susan because she's business to consumer, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to Susan. She's going to describe her business, what she did, the profile of her customer, and then I'm going to show a short movie of what we did to collect her email addresses, and then we actually did an email campaign with the emails that we collected, and I'll show you the results of that. And then, do you want to take questions during your presentation or at the end or whatever? Okay, clicker. So I'm going to go sit down, and I can drive the movie from over there. Susan, take it away.
Hello, just a brief introduction. My name's Susan Sullivan. My maiden name was Ruff, so you can see my newly trademarked, brand spanking new trademark is Ruff Ideas for my business name. I've been doing T-shirts for decades at this point. And my problem is, unlike if I owned a T-shirt printing service, it would be really easy to market my business because that's I'm marketing to end user, I'm marketing it to businesses, I'm marketing to people who need T-shirts, so they come to me. I'm doing it kind of the opposite way. I come up with an idea after some research, finding out what niches sell, and even going down to micro niches of what might sell. And I'll post my designs on Amazon, Etsy, T-Launch, T-Public, Redbubble. There's a bunch of different, what they call print-on-demand sites. So I don't have to have inventory, which makes this a great thing. If somebody wants it, they place an order, it's printed for them, and it's shipped out by somebody else, which is really, really good. So, so my problem is, how do I find people to market to? Because every time I come up with an idea, it's a different niche. So the one that Don and I were working on, it dawned on us afterwards that, hey, this would be after St. Patrick's Day, so it kind of wouldn't be worth doing some marketing since it was so close and we couldn't deliver shirts for it. So, so we decided, I had all these Boston Terrier dogs I had drawn for another niche, and so I decided, hey, let's just market to the Boston Terrier people. And let's see. Which one's the next one, Don? What, left and right? Oh, hold on, went too far. Oh, too far the other way. All right, there we go. So this is what we were saying about the unfortunate part. Every time I do a shirt, I try and do a series of shirts. So if I'm going to market one shirt, it's just as easy to market a dozen with the same theme. So, like Don says, a defined niche like Easter. Now, that's a little too broad to try and, I felt, to use this technique. So we went and we did Boston Terriers. So it didn't matter whether it was a man, a woman, a kid, their demographic of where they lived, how much money they made. It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered, do they like Boston Terriers? That's all that mattered. So we came up with the keyword. Don will show you what he did with the setting up the instant Facebook list, because the way we're going for my work is to, on Facebook they have already separated themselves into groups. You can join a group with whatever interest you have, and I know that there's several Boston Terrier groups. Now, not everybody has an email listed there because usually you're private messaging or just posting to the group. So,
Susan, I'm
yes.
sorry. Could you speak straight into the microphone and not on the side?
So is it echoing?
Yeah.
Okay.
We weren't getting enough signal.
Oh, okay.
You can raise it up if you need it to be higher.
I can shrink it down. Good. All right. So that was my dilemma with business to consumer. So I'm trying to reach people who are interested in the particular niche that I'm trying to market. So is this the point you want to cue the...
Okay, so what we did, and I just can't believe that we managed to pick tonight, by the way, was some kind of a party next door. That was unexpected, so I'm very sorry about all that noise. So what Susan and I did was we actually spent time online and went through this whole process of creating the list, and I created a short movie. This particular movie is 4 minutes and 9 seconds long. I'm going to try to play that. Hopefully it'll come out okay, and if it doesn't, we'll just explain it with words. So,
good morning, Susan. Just thought I'd do a quick test on the IFB list on Facebook to see what I can find for your Boston Terrier project. So this is the IFB software, and it's set to the keyword is Boston Terrier, and I'll just look for the Gmail, anything at gmail.com. So that's all I do, and then click search, and it goes to Facebook, and it finds all of the posts that have the word Boston Terrier in it, as you can see. I'll just scroll down a little bit here. So there's a lot of them, and what I don't know is, does this go through all of Facebook or just from my friends or what have you? But anyway, leaving that issue aside. So once it does that, then I go back to the IFB list. It's found all of those posts. Then I go through, I click scroll, and now it's going through entry by entry to find email addresses. I'll just let it run for another few seconds. Just keep going. All right, and then I'll just stop, and then click fetch, and it goes out and captures all of the email addresses. So in this case, it found 33, 22 of them were duplicates, and 11 are unique. So I select that list, copy, just open up Notepad, and there's a bunch of email addresses. Now, you'll have to craft a message to send to these folks, but clearly they're involved or interested in Boston Terriers. Okay, so that's the Boston Terrier story. Then I did it just for the fun of it. I did St. Patrick, P-A-T-R-I-C, I guess St. Patrick's Day. I don't know if there's apostrophe or not. Patrick's, or just say St. Patrick Day. Let's see what comes up. I'll do a search. Yeah, it's apostrophe S, but it finds those as well. Go back up the IBF list. Oh, that's interesting. It puts in a apostrophe there. Okay, do a scroll. Let it run for a few seconds. So these are all people clearly interested in St. Patrick's. You can just see here. Click stop. Click fetch. Again, 20 emails were found, 3 duplicates, 25 unique. Copy, paste. Same thing. Here are email addresses. Now, I don't know if these are all accurate. If you want to check them before you send anything out, write verify. That's it. Write verify. It's a paid service, but all right, I'm not going to do all of them. I'll just do. You can upload a whole list, but in this case, I'll just upload one just to show you how it works. I'll take Shannon, whatever, put that in there, verify, and it comes back as valid. So that worked. Anyway, the point is, this works very nicely on Facebook, and I only let it run for a few seconds. If you let it run for half an hour or an hour, you probably get a much, much larger list. So that's the IVF verifier.
Yeah, well, after we did that, Don did just what he said in the video. We went back and he let it run for quite a while, and that's when we ended up with, is the next one our actual, oh yeah, these are the actual stats that we had. What we got from Facebook was 442 actual email addresses, and you can see Don used for the mail providers, Gmail, Yahoo, MSN.
Closer to the mic, please.
Hotmail, AOL, and Outlook. So those were the top mail providers. And after we verified it, we got down to 328, and then we split it in half. 165 got the text message, and 163 got the HTML message. So, going back here. These are the two different messages that we sent out. The plain text, and each one had a different subject, you know, just to see whether we catch their attention, and an ever so slightly different message. With HTML, we could use a call to action button. It's just a click with the basic text message. Right now, I don't have a website. So what this is sending them to is, we put in a bit.ly link, which is a shortener. You can take a long URL, long web address, and put it into bit.ly, and it'll make it something nice and little so that it's not going to break in your email message, and they'll get they can't click through to it. So we had in the bit.ly account this little short link for each one so that we could track how each one of these messages did. So we would know that from the one piece of software, Don was sending it from AB bulk mailer. So we would know that it got sent. The next step is to find out, okay, it got sent. How do we find out where, if somebody clicked on it? So that was bit.ly's job. So we had two different short links set up, and we could tell after Don sent it out how many people clicked on that message to go through. And just real quick on the AB bulk mailer, we had a little bit of a problem with what mail server to use to send the mail out. So we finally had to get an Earthlink email address, and thankfully they give you an email-only package, and it's $8 a month, and you get 3 different email addresses. So that's all we needed for this experiment. And so we tracked that. We tracked the unsubscribed, and I forget what our total was, like 9 removed or unsubscribed, yeah. And 4 undeliverable. So that's not bad at all. And then we got the total click-throughs. It was a very, very, very small amount. When you look at 300 and something emails, that's not a whole lot to send out. So, but you can see the click-through, 9 people actually clicked through out of the 165, and on the HTML, 8 actually clicked through. And kind of an average of 5% click through to actually see the product. So, didn't get any sales on the other end. I would have been really thrilled to report that, hey, we got an HTML sale, but we didn't get that far with it. So, anything else?
Yeah, I guess for those of you who ever send out email, 5% actual clicking to a buy page for the first time, a cold email, is unbelievably amazing. I don't think I even get 5% when I send out mailings for our consortium. So for me, that's a really spectacular result. Now, I don't know if you get 5%, the same 5% if you send out 1,000 mail. I don't see why not. It would be the same. But these are really targeted emails, right? These are people that said that I'm interested in the Boston Terrier. Do you want to tell us what the title was on some of the on the email? Because it's kind of a humorous.
Well, you can see they both say, "I fart because I love." And if you know any of the bully dogs have gas problems, any of the short face look like they've been chasing parked car dogs, they have gas problems, and they all laugh at them. And I had already done research that on Amazon, when you type in Boston Terrier, the top selling Boston Terrier, French Bulldog, they all deal with their gas problems. So that's why I did this, and we did two different titles. So almost the subject line in the email sounded like it was coming from a vitamin or supplement supplier. Hey, we could solve your dog's gas problem. So we didn't get any really nasty emails back that said, "What are you doing?" and "I'm going to report you." And the email address is still working, so we didn't get reported. But
Right, and we followed the Canned Spam Act because at the bottom of each mail there's an unsubscribe link where people can click and unsubscribe. Now, because we weren't using a MailChimp or some of the other services which do automatic unsubscribes, what this does is we set up does anybody know what a mail to code is? An HTML mail to code? So basically it's a link where you put in your email address and any message you want in the subject line, and when they click on the unsubscribe, it brings up an email that gets sent back to you saying, "Please unsubscribe me." And now it's up to you to do that. So it doesn't go through any of the, because we didn't use any of the traditional email service providers. That's what the AB bulk mailer is all about. So the whole system worked. It worked perfectly. I think we got terrific results, and we were able to get your 400 some odd emails probably within an hour or two.
Yeah, and it didn't take long to pare them down and dedupe them and.
Right. So for those people who have tried to build organic lists, how long does it take you to build a 400 name or email list using, "Please subscribe me to your newsletter"? That would take months and months, right?
Oh, yeah. And like I said, I don't have a central website for many, many reasons, besides the fact that these niches are all over the place, but there's a lot of theft in the t-shirt industry. So you get people that'll come in and just take every design off of your website and throw it on other places. So I don't want to put everything out there in one shot under one brand name. So yes. Now we tried this 4 or 5 days ago. So I didn't get any sales from it. It would have been really great to say, "Hey, yeah, we sold a couple of them," but no, that didn't happen on this one. So,
yeah.
But I think I'm still going to keep the software, the system, and give it a couple more shots, see if it works.
Yeah, the actual sale would be dependent on the product or the service, and the message and all of that. That's beyond the scope of what we could do with this, collecting emails and sending out emails and so on. So this now gives you the tools that you can use to refine your message and your product to reach your audience.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'll try it a couple more times and because the tools are really inexpensive. And real quick, it's a simple HTML editor that I use. It's called Mail Developer. I have it for another client that I send out his emails, and it's real easy to use if you're afraid of building HTML outside of like a MailChimp or an Aweber or Constant Contact, that kind of thing. So there are other systems available.
So the total cost for this was, if you were to have bought the IFB list tool, which I was using, my account, I think that's $27 to buy that.
I bought that the last time we talked. I said $27 for that. The AB bulk mailer
was $39, I think, for unlimited corporate license, and then your $89 a month for the Earthlink. So what can you do for $50 or $60? And get 5% click-through results.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
The only thing that's a recurring charge is the Earthlink, $8 a month.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And this is specifically designed for business to consumer, whereas you'll see our next couple examples will be business to business. So any questions? Yes. Use the microphone, please.
What was the scraping software?
It's called Instant Facebook Lists. And when you get the slides, Corey, you'll see or Carrie, I mean, you'll see the links and so on. We have them all there. There are many, many, many Facebook scraping tools. That happens to be one that I found that it worked very well. So, but you can just Google Facebook tools or scraping tools and you'll get many other choices. Any other questions? Okay, let's give Susan a round of applause, please. Thank you. Great job, Susan. Judith, you're next. So Judith, shall I introduce you or will you do a better job of yourself?
I don't know.
I'm sure you'll do a better job.
I'll give it a go. So I'm Judith Quinlan. I'm the Quinlan part of the QuinlanMacKay company, where I have with my business partner, who's Jim McKay. So we've had no imagination whatsoever when we came up with a business name. So as Don alluded to, my background really is as a private lender in real estate. Same with Jim, my business partner. But we're starting a new company, and our purpose there is really raising funds for larger projects, so not single families and things like that. So we're raising funds for, it's not just multifamily, it's also for larger projects. Current one is like 8 duplex homes, and one after that will be another multiplex. Sometimes are small developments of single family, more on the rather expensive side of things. And we do that for projects which are all over the country. So our problem, or not our problem, but our challenge, I'm going to say, was to, and I think Don's kind of explained this quite well, is, you know, we're starting off and we can grow our list organically, but we want to sort of give it a bolster, you know, injection so that we can increase our funnel of investors sort of quite rapidly. So some of the challenges that we have is if you went and tried to, you know, buy keywords and things and advertise that way, that's a very competitive space for us, because we're chasing what's called accredited investors. So essentially it has to be somebody that's earning $200,000 or more per year, or alternatively has $1 million in net assets. So that's a very competitive space. For lots of reasons and for lots of different people. And so the keyword purchasing thing, we were told, was something like $20,000 per lead. So that's going to rule that out totally for us. So the alternative is to try and find, like, you know, how can we do this cheaper and get a list up together really quite fast. And so for me, this has been really quite an eye-opening exercise to learn from Don about how easy it actually was to create a list. For us, because of the criteria that we're chasing, LinkedIn was a very good place for us to go search for the type of investor that we might be looking for. So we had, I think I've got it on the next slide. Yeah, so Don asked me to provide him with a list of what we thought would be our accredited investor space. As you can sort of see, we're looking for, we have had, it's not that we're starting from scratch, by the way. We do have a list of our own, and we've been speaking to people, and what we generally find is that people who fit that category are generally sort of older, sort of 45 or plus. My business partner actually thought we should hit it at 50 as a minimum, but I'd just like to know how low we can go before we prune that. So we're selling real estate investments, obviously. Maximum age over 45, we don't care if they're male or female. Geographical residence could be anywhere in the US. We thought educational level, probably bachelor's degree or higher, or potentially a business owner or somebody like that. And job title. So you can sort of see here, we're probably targeting, you know, people that you would generally think have got a decent sort of income. And we're using that as a surrogate really for the $200,000 or more. After I did this exercise with Don, I've been a member of LinkedIn for a number of years, but I've never really used it in the capacity of which Don enlightened me to and through this exercise. But I also found that I was able to, retrospectively after this, I could go back into LinkedIn and I could actually put in job titles, and it would tell me based on the income that people self-reported through LinkedIn, what was the average income, what was their base level, what was a high-end level. So I could actually probably cross-check several occupations by doing that as well before doing a run-through. Loads of medical people on here. Anyway, you can sort of see it's a long list. Interests, again, we thought people would play golf, tennis, do sailing, and members of country clubs and things like that are likely to be fitting our criteria. So it was quite extensive, but when it came to do the search, of course, we just did a sample run through. So for that, I don't know whether we've got that. Okay, so we went into LinkedIn, and just for this exercise, what I gave Don was to just search for dermatologists that were in the greater Philadelphia area. Why did I pick dermatologists? Well, my background's in the pharmaceutical industry before doing this. My partner's also a medical person, and he's told me that dermatologists are one of the highest paid medical people. So that was a good starting place as far as I was concerned. So it's Sales Navigator that Don used in LinkedIn to actually create the list. It's something that I was not aware of. I didn't have a version of this myself at the time, but I do now. It's really quite easy. Just had to fill in sort of like, basically search things like put in dermatologist, what area, greater Philadelphia, and of course you can fine tune it a lot more than what we did actually for this search. And then after that, I think the process was that we had to do similar to what Susan had to do. We had to verify the email addresses, make sure that they were bona fide. I think we didn't get very many names, but we also didn't get very many that sort of got spat out of the list either. So LinkedIn was really our source, because we were thinking that rather than Facebook or other things that are out there more with social media, that LinkedIn was more likely to be the place we would find our people.
Yeah, the other criteria we used was they were in practice for more than 10 years.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We thought they needed to be established. So that was actually really quite an interesting thing for me, because some of the things I just automatically thought that doctors earned a reasonable income, but from the looks of it, when you're first out of and practicing as a doctor, you actually don't earn that great a deal. And so we thought a longer term in practice would be a better criteria for us.
Right. So in addition to using LinkedIn with the Sales Navigator upgrade, I don't know what the pricing for that was. There's also a tool that you use in order to capture the information from each of the LinkedIn pages called Duck's Soup, spelled the way you see it on the screen there. And then there's another service within Duck's Soup that actually captures the email addresses of the pages that it captures within Duck's Soup. So this movie is a little bit longer, and if it's either too long or not clear to you, we can stop the movie, and I think we can explain it maybe quite well. So we'll give this a try. It's 14 minutes long. It's down from about 40 minutes from the original version. So let's see what happens here.
We're going to do Judith Quinlan's list development. We're going to start with LinkedIn and using the Sales Navigator feature. And in her case, hi Judith, you're on the wire. So why don't you describe the profile of your prospect?
Okay, so we're looking for accredited investors, which is an SEC requirement for our business. And that means that they, as an individual, you must earn more than $200,000 a year or have in excess of $1 million in net assets. So with this search, we're going to try and identify those types of people by a profile that I've been working with Don on.
Okay. So we'll start with industry, and I think you said medical would be at least a good place.
Medical would be that would be a good start.
A good place to start. So these are people that earn more than $200,000 a year, we hope. So we'll say medical practice. Okay.
Mhm.
We'll just leave it there for industry. Whoops, sorry. Okay. Medical practice. Okay. And geography will be anywhere in the country. Relationship, school, profile. Don't have to add another industry. We don't care about first name, last name, language. Role and tenure filters. Let's see. Function. What would be a function that might be relevant for this? I don't think that relates to what we're doing here.
No.
Years in current position, I would say, or years of experience, I would say you're probably going to want somebody with more than 10 years of experience. What do you think?
Probably, yes, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Get established.
Yeah, I think so. We don't need their job title because it'll be their own practice probably. Company headcount, past company, none of this matters. Tag, groups, member since, posted keywords, all right? If you want, we could just identify a couple of the medical practice people that you're interested in. Could you give me an example? Or
dermatologist.
Again, please?
Dermatologist.
All right. How do you spell that? Derm.
Hang on. Just a sec.
I don't know if that's correct spelling.
Cardiologist would be another one.
All right, that's a good start. Okay, interesting. So we've just limited ourselves to 9 people. That's
really,
yeah, that's kind of weird.
Maybe you're more likely. Well, dermatologists might have their own practice, but maybe a cardiologist is more likely to be affiliated with a hospital.
You know what? I think when we did keywords, it operates with a logical or. I'm sorry, with a logical and. Because with just dermatologist, it shows up as 3,094 results.
Oh, I see. So you're not going to find a dermatologist who's also a cardiologist.
All right. So just for the fun of it, let's say geography will be a greater Philadelphia area.
Okay.
Only because I want to reduce the search.
Mm-hmm.
So greater Philadelphia area gets us 52. Okay, that's a good place. That's a good way to start.
Okay.
So we'll do we're looking for dermatologists with more than 10 years of practice in the greater Philadelphia area. And I think those are the only criteria that we selected. So we'll do a search, and there's 52 results. Ari Gutman, Kevin Shanley, Dorata, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So now, how do you get these names? How do you get these email addresses? Well, there's a wonderful product that I use called Duck Soup, and it's a paid service, and I'm going to start Duck Soup by visiting profiles. And yes, would you like Duck Soup to look for email addresses other than your first degree connections? Yes, of course. And it now runs. Now, I have already paid for another service within Duck Soup to capture the email addresses in addition to the profile information. And so it's just going to start to run now, and you'll see it purposely takes a long time so that LinkedIn doesn't think that somebody is scamming or their database. So it takes 20 or 30 seconds for each record, and in a moment or two, you'll see this little increment. There you go, visiting Ari Gutman, that's the first one, and it's scanning through the record, and okay, so Ari doesn't have his email listed. So now we'll go to the next one, who's the next one on here? Kevin Shanley. So it'll wait a few seconds and then skip to Kevin's record. Interesting. So Ari is with the company 9 years and 5 months. So here we go. And so we already have one record. You see up here? There's a 1. So now it's visiting Candace Heath. When it says visiting, when it says visiting, it means it's searching through the record. And if there's an email address, it'll populate this database up here. Actually, if it captures the information, it'll populate the database. So it's working now. I'm not going to, we don't have to sit here and wait for all 65 records. I'll let it run just a few more, and then I'll show you what the list looks like. So we've got 4 so far captured, and I'll just show you what they look like. So I'm gonna download the data just to show you. It's going to continue to run in the background. So here are the 5 that we just pulled up. Okay, so here's Ari, and Ari lists himself as an expert witness for dermatology-related medical malpractice. There you go. And we have email addresses for everybody but Ari, and it'll just keep on. You won't get 100% of the email addresses, but you'll get a good percentage of them. And of course, before you start using them, you should verify them. There are email verification tools available. The one that I like is called Bright Verify. So I have a Bright Verify account, and you can upload lists, or you could do one at a time. So in this case, I'm just going to do this one. So that's Candace at Hotmail, or Candris, I should say. Click verify. And in this case, it's a good email. If it wasn't a good email, it would say invalid or something like that. So that would be an email that you could use. So here's a list that I uploaded of 993 names. And it verified all of them, and it came up that of the 993, 679 were valid, 75 were invalid, and 76 were unknown, and 163 were accept all. And you can download them and see which ones are which, and then go through the process of either ignoring them, deleting them, whatever you want to do. So here, it's a very nice tool. These are all identified as dermatologists, and now we have more email addresses, and so on and so on. And it'll just keep on going. So these people are all a third-degree relationship from my records. So if you were to do the same search on your LinkedIn account, it'll come up with different names because you have your contacts, which are different than mine, and this just goes out from my network.
So how it searches, is it? It's looking for names from your account?
It starts with all of my contacts and looks for their contacts and then their contacts. That would be the third, or maybe then their contacts. That would be the third layer, third degree. Let's just try something real quick. I haven't tried this before, so we're doing it live. So this is my Facebook page, and there's a tool which I think cost me $22 or $29 or something, and it's called Instant Facebook List, and this is it here. And then you put in a keyword. So let's put in cardiologist. And what it's going to do when I click search is it's going to go and search all the Facebook, or at least, again, I don't know if it's all the posts in the whole world of Facebook or just the ones that are related to me in some way, or I'm not entirely sure about that yet. But anyway, that have a Gmail and the word and a keyword of cardiologist somewhere in the post. So I'm going to click search, and it's going to go out and find them. And here you go. It's finding all these posts that have the word cardiologist in them somewhere in the post. Now, they may not be the cardiologists. It's a post that has the word cardiology in it. Okay. And once that's completed, I mean, it just runs. Then you go back to it. I guess, I was diddling around. I'll click search again. Okay. And then you click scroll. And now it's going through all of those posts and extracting the email addresses that were associated with each of those posts that have the word cardiologist somewhere in the post. And that'll run for a long, long, long time. I'm not going to run for that long, but I'll just run for a little bit here. Then I'll just click stop. And then to extract the emails themselves, click fetch. And it pulled out, in just that amount of time, it found 46 emails, 12 of which were duplicates, 34 were collected. Select this list, and then I copy Control-C, put it into a notepad, and there. So here, actually, it wasn't all just Gmail. So here's heartcongress@cardiologyconference.org, and you have all of these people. Here's this is an interesting one. Dr. Keen, however you pronounce that, at gmail.com. So and then if you don't want to just do Gmail, you can do yahoo.com or any of the others.
Can you get their first names or last names?
There are probably other tools that can do that, but I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for your purposes, because you're looking for such a high-end client, I'm not sure I would use this tool because, like, you don't really know who these people are. You don't know their job titles or where they work or what have you.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to show you.
Jim and I had this interesting call with this marketing company on Friday, and the lady basically said that this was really surprising to me. I didn't realize this about searching, is that when you buy, this is for optimization. So when you buy, you bid on keywords.
Yes.
And because the accredited investor space is such hot property and very competitive, she said you could be paying as much as $20,000 per lead.
Yeah, she's right.
That's just not profitable for us. It makes no sense for us to do that.
Or you could do this and spend, a penny.
Yep, I think that's it. Actually, the next part of the discussion was I said to Judith, if this cost her a penny and the other guys were going to charge her $20,000, I told her where she could send a check. So anyway, Judith, so do you want to talk about, now in your case, we didn't do a mailing.
No, we haven't done that.
Yeah, because I think in your case, the kind of person you're trying to reach is with the message that you want to send to them is highly specialized. So do you want to talk a little bit about your plan there?
I mean, Don thought it might be more positive for us to actually write a personal letter to the list of people that we're really targeting to distinguish us from, because we know they do get a lot of mail being sent to them because they're such a highly targeted group. So we're going to try that. And I also want to make a comment to something you said earlier. This has been a learning for us. Neither my business partner or I are marketing people. I guess I'm kind of like the numbers person in the group. I'm previously a statistician, as I mentioned, and my business partner is more from the sales side. But so the gap was really the marketing thing that we both realised we needed to fill that space. So we'd approach this by, going to somebody to set up our website. And then we've gone and bought the Infusionsoft, which is, I think that's going to be on a future meeting here, which can help automate the mailings and things. But before we even get into Infusionsoft, we're going to have to filter the list that we've got already. But I think it really we both were very aware that there's a lack of communication between these three parties, which really, I think, to make it work effectively, has to come together. And so we've got a website. It's not live yet, but and that's because we had to have it reviewed for SEC reasons. But it's there. But I really anticipate that we are going to have to put this three groups talking to each other to make sure that we've optimized our website to be effective for what we want, not just from what it looks like visually and has it got the content there, but to make sure that it's actually, working to its fullest for us. So I just want to make that comment before.
Yeah. Also, just from the point of view of costs. So LinkedIn, I can't remember exactly. Maybe Lynn, you know the answer. It's about $60 or $70 a month, I think, for LinkedIn. Is that right? Right. The Sales Navigator is extra, right? And I think altogether it's around. Okay, so I'll repeat. So this LinkedIn plus the Sales Navigator is like $80 to $100 a month, something in that range, which compared to $20,000 isn't bad. That's per lead. This is unlimited. And then Duck Soup, I think, is either $9 or $19 a month. Again, not terribly expensive. And then the feature to be able to capture the emails, it's like, I think, 2.5 cents per email, something like that. You get 700 leads for $49. No, I forgot exactly, but it's a couple of pennies per email address, and that's it. And then you can use it as many times as you want. And whether you're looking for cardiologist or dermatologist, or we're going to be looking for a different kind of person in a few minutes, it gives you a tremendous access. So,
yeah, like as I said, I was really surprised by how easy it was when you did this to actually run it and make it work.
Any questions for Judith? Yes, grab the mic, please.
Judith, Don, I'm just curious. This is a salesman. I apologize. Why wouldn't you focus on people who are investors that have already invested in projects that are exactly like the ones you do, as opposed to people who have money? Because there's a lot of people who meet that criteria of money who don't fit the right criteria.
You can. This was just the profile that Judith chose.
Okay. My suggestion is go find people who have already invested in the kind of things that you find investors for. Identify 3 problems that they have, and then send them an email saying, by the way, if you're ever interested in investing in a blah, 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 and you don't want to do blah and blah and blah, give me a call. Stay away from the people who have a lot of money.
Well, they're the people that we want, but we also want people that have had some experience.
Exactly.
But that'll
Right. It's like I told my daughter, she was looking for a date. I said, you go to a biker bar, you will get a lot of dates. But if you go to a happy hour in a major metropolitan area where there's a lot of suits, you'll come up with a different kind of date.
Whose idea was the biker bar? Yours or the daughter's?
No, I get that asked all the time about seminars. From financial people, how do I fill a room? I said, easy. If you're just trying to fill a room, you hire Taylor Swift, and you will, in fact, get 10,000 kids under the age of 14 there. But not too many of them are looking for an index annuity.
Good point. Thank you. Spoken like a true sales guy. There you go. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So are you going to follow his advice? Look for people that have already made investments.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to do that. But it sounds good advice.
We'll find it. Great. Let's give Judith a round of applause, please. Thank you, Judith. Okay. Lynn, you're up. So Lynn's business is entirely different than the other 2 that you've heard about. So take it away, Lynn.
My name is Lynne Williams, and I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Area Great Careers Group. We were formed in 2010 by 2 gentlemen. I took it over in 2015 when it was a meetup group of 1,722 people. And in about 2 years and 7 months, I've now grown it to 3,041 people. We're in Chester County, Delaware County, Bucks County, Montgomery County, Philadelphia County, and Haddonfield, New Jersey. So we are really localized in the greater Philadelphia area. So that is the only target market that I am looking to do. I'm not looking at US like Judith was. What we do is we provide career management, education, and networking connections. We have meetups. We run over 400 meetups a year. So we have something happening every day, sometimes several meetups a day. And they're all run by volunteers in the area. We help people that are in career transition, job seekers, and want to be entrepreneurs. And we also help people that are looking for career management. So that's employed, self-employed as well. So what we did is we also took LinkedIn along with DuckSoup to try and determine who might be people that might want to donate to us. We are a 501c3, so we are a charitable nonprofit, so tax deductions are available for any donations to us, versus there's other types of nonprofits where it is not considered a charitable organization. We were looking for companies that had over 500 employees in greater Philadelphia area, and they had a title of director or manager of outreach. So the key word was outreach. When Dunn and I first did a sample, we used community outreach as a title. Now, as someone who instructs 11 hours worth of LinkedIn content, believe it or not, I do not have LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I have the business premium account. So this was actually the first time that I saw this being used, and it was eye-opening and enlightening for me as well. If you go on LinkedIn to research the demographics of the people in LinkedIn, they're very well educated. They earn salaries typically, and a good site I use for that, which Don doesn't even know about yet, is called expandedramblings.com. Expandedramblings.com. So there's some really great statistics on actually all social media platforms that you will find on that particular site. So I was looking for potential donors of companies who might want to sponsor some of our programs. So we used the LinkedIn Sales Navigator along with DuckSoup until we found people that had this community outreach title. And as you saw from Judith's slide, she had a whole bunch of job titles of people that she was looking for. I developed the same type of list, but of course my job titles were, you know, director of community outreach, manager of community outreach coordinator, all the different titles that could possibly exist around, you know, other keywords like that. So here is our video where Don was scraping, you know, my particular interests, but using his Sales Navigator on his LinkedIn profile. So I'll let him tell you a little more.
Okay, so this is only 7 minutes, 48 seconds long, and I did it. I didn't record it when Judith and I were, when Lynn and I were on the phone together, so I just made this up last night, actually. So it's a short version of what we did.
One thing I want to mention is LinkedIn is a database, and I could very well go into the database and do my own search and a Boolean search, but it would not be as rapid as Don is doing this. And the one interesting thing I learned is that it doesn't scrape LinkedIn too quickly. And Don, you want to explain why?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. The reason DuckSoup goes as slow as it does is because if it went faster, the LinkedIn database would see that as an attack. We have our security expert here, and it takes, I think it's set for 26 seconds for each search, and apparently 26 seconds is enough time for it to be not considered an attack on the database. So it just lets you run and run and run. It takes a little time, but it does get through it. So that's the reason why it takes a little bit of time.
So this little demo, Don just did a few samples, and basically I call this transferable knowledge. If he can show me how he does it with one particular title, then I can apply that to other titles and continue in building the potential list.
Yeah, different profiles.
As a nonprofit, we get 10 free seats for Salesforce. So we actually have volunteers building us a Salesforce CRM, and so this will be very interesting when we put this all together. I also do MailChimp, and my list was grown organically. So we have about a 32 to 35% open rate, which is excellent. But if I start adding these new things to MailChimp, I would ask people's permission first to see if they were interested in joining the newsletter of the Philadelphia Area Great Careers Group, so that I don't get unsubscribes and I follow the canned
I
spam
would not suggest you put these email addresses into MailChimp first.
Yeah.
That use some other tool first to get their permission. Otherwise, MailChimp will get very cranky about that.
Yes, they will.
We'll get that
Okay.
later.
Ken.
Okay. So here's the quick movie for Judith.
Question.
Pulling emails off of LinkedIn?
Yes.
Repeat the question, please.
Are you pulling emails off of LinkedIn?
Yes.
Yes.
Using the tool called DuckSoup.
But it is a lot quicker than doing it manually one by one. Okay.
Does that answer your question? Okay, here we go. Hello, Lynn. We're going to do a search on LinkedIn for the profile that you're interested in, which we identified as having a job title of Director or Manager of Outreach in the greater Philadelphia area with companies greater than 500 employees. So we're going to start by using LinkedIn and using the Sales Navigator tool, which is a premium service available. Launching that, getting into the Advanced tab, search for leads, and it brings up the search panel. And we're going to look for job titles. Let's see if it's in the function. Or I think it's job title. So outreach. So we'll do outreach specialist. We'll do outreach director. We'll do outreach. Let's see what other choices we have. Director of Community Outreach, Outreach Manager. That's a good start. Geography will be the greater Philadelphia area. And company headcount, we'll say greater, well, let's see, it doesn't do it that way. So we'll do 500 to 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10, and greater than 10,000. So, according to this, we have 387 results available to us because I've added a few more job titles here. So, having done that, we'll do a search. And there are 387 results. We're going to use DuckSoup, which is another paid service, which is also it's installed as a Chrome extension. And I'm going to just download the data that I have in there previously, just to clear the register. Okay. And then we're going to clear out the data. So to get DuckSoup running, it automatically starts running. And as you can see, it says DuckSoup cleared, and we're going to start visiting profiles.
and it's going to ask, would you like Duck Soup to look for email addresses other than your first degree connections? Well, in our case, yes. And it's going to start, because I've done this search already, the yellow color means that it's skipping that name because it previously visited them, but just ignore that for now. So it's visiting the names, or visiting the records of people that it didn't see before. So this first person is, I can't read, but you'll see here. And it searches that record, and as you can see, the little icon changes from 0 to 1. That means it's captured that record. There's also, inside of Duck Soup, there's another paid feature which allows you to capture emails. So I have that installed as well. So we'll let it run for a few more seconds here to get a few records, and then I'll show you what those look like. So while we're waiting for that to happen, you can see, for example, here's a contact, Kim, Penn Medicine University, Director Health System Outreach, Beverly Brown, Stone Moore Partners, Director of Community Outreach, Alex Eldrith, Autism Community Outreach Director, and so on and so forth. And we've got 2 records identified so far, or 2 records captured. We'll let it get to 3 or 4, and then I'll show you what the database looks like. As you can see, when it captures an email, it deducts 1 point from the Duck Soup account. That's a cost. I think it's around 4 cents or something per record. And pretty soon that number 2 should increment to number 3. The reason it goes slow is because if it went very fast, then the LinkedIn database would recognize this as some kind of an attack or a spam or something, and it would shut down. And so by doing things slowly like this, it prevents that. Okay, so we've hit 3. I'll let it go to 1 more. There we are. So now it's on the record with a helicopter, which is right here, Kim. I'll let it run for a little while, and we'll edit that all out of the movie, and then I'll show you the end result. Okay, I'm going to stop it here. We're at about 17 records. So I'm just going to stop the robot and download the data. So we'll download it, the visited data, and then take a quick look. And this is the data that was searched from the LinkedIn account for the outreach director. So as you can see, we have these job titles: Program Specialist, Community Outreach and Impact, Director of Student Outreach and Support, Director of Health System Outreach, Community Outreach Specialist, Director Marketing Outreach and Member Experience, etc. And you can see the company names: Greater Refuge Tabernacle Ministries, Children's Hospital Philadelphia, St. Joseph's University, Penn Medicine, Tampa University, and so on and so forth. So this is a good solid list of people to start with. There were 300 and some odd names on that list, and as you can see, most of them have email addresses. So this is a good place to stop, and Lynne will be able to use this, complete this process, and use all of these contacts for her.
Anybody have any questions?
So that's how we did a search for people that are potential donors to Lynne's nonprofit organization. That's a very different business model than we've seen before. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Lynn, I have a question. You said earlier that after you generate this initial list, you then do an opt-in process before you go to like MailChimp. What's that process? How do you execute that?
I would have to take a look at the company to find out if it was really valid for what we are looking for. As Don showed you, there was somebody that was doing outreach for autism. And of course, we would love to have a chapter that supports autistic job seekers, but we don't have that right now. So we are looking for companies who are willing to support programming for our job seekers, because we do so incredibly much for free on nothing. we operate on donations, basically. And there's a point in time where it's not going to be sustainable. So we need to have some company support because the donations from individuals, are not going to cover the basic business expenses that we have. So we're going to work on monetizing other workshops and maybe having a learning management system where people can subscribe to the resources that we'll put up on there, for example.
Let me add to your comment to answer your question about how do you qualify these emails. So I think I actually have that on the next slide. So if you look at the screen there are some other email strategies. The first is to send. First of all, I would recommend not using a MailChimp or any of those, because they're very, very what's the right way of saying it? Sensitive to having cold emails sent out from their system, because they pride themselves on not sending out spam. So, not that I'm suggesting that you do this, but if you want to do this, you should use a system that sends email out outside of that system, and then ask people for permission to use their email address. And once they give you permission, then you can put it into MailChimp. So the tool that I showed you earlier, called AB Bulk Mailer, is that what it's called? Is one such example of such a tool. And you can create an email. Let's call it I don't use the word phony email address, but let's say an alternate email address than your own email. So Carrie, in your case, it might be baldguy.com or something. Sorry about that. I couldn't help myself. Okay. Or old guy or something. Anyway, create yourself a proxy email address, and you can do it on Earthlink for $9 a month. I think that was it, $9 or $10 a month. And then use a tool like AB Bulk Emailer and create a message that's, I don't know if I have a picture of one in here or not, but I did such a mailing where the subject line was, may I respectfully ask your permission? And and then describe what you're trying to do and respectfully ask their permission, give them a link to opt into your mailing list. And if they do, they do. And if they don't, they don't. Then you can either send them another message, a couple messages, and then just ignore them from there on. So some of the strategies that I've listed here are ask permission to send future emails. That's what I was just talking about. You can do what Sue did, which normally I wouldn't recommend, because what we did it just as an experiment, which is to go straight to a buy now link. That's usually the wrong thing to do, because people don't like that. Offer them a free download as a way of getting their email address and name and permission to send them messages, or give them a chance to sign up for a newsletter or your blog or videos or what have you. And then there's a whole industry around ClickFunnels. If you're familiar with that, just Google ClickFunnels or go into YouTube and look for ClickFunnels, and you'll see an endless number of ClickFunnel concepts. And then there's the drip email campaign that, I'm sure you know what that means. So you send out email 1, depending on whether they answer it or not, then you send out email 2, and so on and so forth. And eventually you want to convert your list of hundreds or thousands of emails to however many that have given you explicit permission to send them email in the future. And then you can put that into your traditional MailChimp or Constant Contact or whatever tool you use. So does that answer your question? Okay. It's an extra step, but you can either do that or spend uncountable sums of money with click. What's it called? Pay to. Oh shit. Pay per click. Thank you. Not click. Pay per click or keywords on Google or Facebook advertising. I've done Facebook advertising a little bit. I can't say I know what the hell I'm doing, but I've gotten 0 results for money. So I don't consider that a win. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I should contact Analytic. What's that company in Boston now? The one that is in the news now. Cambridge Analytica. I'll hire them to help me. That was a joke, by the way. No, it's actually not a joke, but anyway. But there are ways of doing that. I personally don't want to spend money on Facebook and get nowhere. I'd rather use the tool that I showed you. So that's how you can do it. So we're basically, this is my last slide, and you can applaud now if you want. So my conclusion is that there are many, many ways of creating highly focused email lists. So we've shown you only just a couple. I don't have time to go through all the tools that are out there, but just Google cold email list building, and you'll find an endless assortment of tools that are available to you. But regardless of how you create your mail list, you need to before you do that, you need to clearly identify an accurate profile of your customer. And I don't remember the name of the gentleman to your right, Lynn, but he raised a very good point when Judith and I were creating her profile, we went after dermatologists, but we weren't smart enough to use the profile that he thought of. And had we done that, we would have gotten maybe a different list. So it's not so easy to come up with an accurate profile of your customer in a way that you can search for them. So that's something you really need to noodle through carefully. And once you've decided what your customer profile is, then choose the source of email, whether it's a LinkedIn, which is more of the professional side, or a Facebook, which is less professional, let's say, or just the web in general. There's another tool that I didn't show you today called Scrapebox. Scrapebox is even more amazing. You just put in a keyword and it goes out to the entire web, not just Facebook or the whole World Wide Web, and finds websites that focus on those keywords. So that's an amazing tool. So once you've gotten this list, the end result that you want to achieve is highly dependent on your product or service. I mean, this is motherhood and apple pie. Your product or service, your carefully crafted message, and the way you deliver that carefully crafted message. And that's beyond the scope of this particular meeting tonight, but I think we all know that if you send out a crappy message, you're not going to get good results, or have a crappy product, you're not going to get results, pet rock notwithstanding. So that's really the message for tonight is, if you want to build an email list quickly, I should say, here are some methods to do it. If you want to build an email list organically, there are an endless number of YouTube videos or courses that you can take to build landing pages and email advertising, Facebook advertising and the like. You choose what you want to do, whatever is best for your business. So that's pretty much it for tonight. Any questions? We're open. Did anybody use Slido? Should I bring that up? You raise your hand if you use Slido. Anybody? Yes, you did? Okay, I'll bring that up in just a moment. So, Dennis, did you have a question? Okay. Any other questions?
So one of the questions that I read was, how much is LinkedIn Sales Navigator? And I just Googled that, and it says you get a 30-day free trial to start, followed by $79.99 per month, with an option to purchase annually for an additional discount. But that was, believe it or not, on Google as of August 4th, 2014. But if you go on LinkedIn to their help center, you will probably find something more current on that.
I have a live question. This is for Lynn, basically. What would you define as the difference between Sales Navigator and the business premium level of LinkedIn? i.e., is it worth $79 per month?
I think it's actually more like $99 a month, because as a business premium member, I'm paying $69.99. I'm basically holding on to it because I was grandfathered in to the lynda.com online learning platform, and I'm still paying for it, but I do an awful lot of networking and connecting people. So you have to know why you want to pay for a business premium account or sales navigator. You have to know why you're going to pay that money to use it. Otherwise, you may want to just consider, the free account. If you want to know all the people that come to look at your profile, the only way you're going to find that out is not with the free account. There's also a job seeker premium account, which I believe is around $29.99 a month, and that moves job seekers up, the ranks, so recruiters see them that they are actually looking. It depends on what the algorithm is.
And I don't know this for absolutely sure, Tom, but I think the Bucks County Library, if you sign into their system, I forgot what it's called, it costs $1 to do that. That's your library card. You can get LinkedIn for free, because you can get lynda.com for free service. So it may not include Sales Navigator, but it might be the rest of the service. So that's something to check out.
Another tool that you can get from your library is Reference USA. Some libraries have Hoovers also, but Reference USA, you can target people by various demographics, and you just need your library card to log in for that.
Amazing.
If it's in your particular county.
So we've answered this question: how much does Sales Navigator cost? And Judith, do you raise money for other people or companies? Do you want to answer that, Judith? Take the microphone. Anonymous asked that question. Who's anonymous?
Do I raise money for other people or companies? So the way our business works, we have relationships with developers, and we're raising money for projects that we sort of for what they're doing, really. So we're targeting people who really either don't have the experience or the time but would like to invest in real estate and don't have the contacts to be able to go out and find those projects themselves. So I guess we are raising money for ourselves, but also in relation to the developers as well, where we have a business relationship.
And you're following the SEC rules. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, this has been. I am the worrywart in the company who is always concerned about, are we working within the boundaries? So we've had to spend a lot of time and a lot of money to make sure that we're compliant or not. I don't like playing by a game where I don't know what the rules are. So that's been a big part of what our foundations of our business has been. And every time we find a new lot of rules like this, spam rules, there's those rules everywhere.
And if you're interested in knowing what the SEC rules are for raising money, last month's meeting that Dennis held, we had an SEC attorney give us an entire evening's lecture on what the rules are for raising funding following the SEC rules for qualified investors. So that's available on our website and on Dennis's website. Any other questions? So raise a show of hands to you guys in the audience. Was this useful for you tonight? Is anybody going to use this? Anybody afraid to use this? Anybody was sleeping? Okay, because when we put this meeting together, we weren't sure, because some people, consider it spam, and that's a bad thing to do. But I think if you follow the rules, you can circumvent a lot of those issues. Yes, you had a question. Grab a mic, please, if you don't mind.
I'm a big believer in doing what I do and I do well, and the things I don't do well, I outsource. What I get out of this meeting is this stuff is really great, but I don't know whether I have the time or the acumen or the effort to learn it all to do it. Are there people who I can hire that will do exactly? I don't want to. When I buy a car, the salesman always wants to show me the engine. I don't care. I'm assuming it has one. It got into the showroom. Okay. Some people like to look at the engine and want to know all about it. I don't. So I would love to go to someone and say, I want to build a list very quickly. and I don't care what tool you use. And here's some that I heard about. So I'm looking for someone who can do that for my business.
Denise, raise your hand. We're going to teach Denise how to do this, and she would be available to help you.
Okay.
Because that's something that she wants to learn how to do.
Yeah. See, I have desire for the results, but a lot of people, I'm an author. A lot of people come to me and say, I want to write a book. I said, no, you don't want to write a book. You want to have written a book. There's a difference.
We have over 650 members in our consortium. They're not all here tonight. But if anyone in this room needs help with anything to do with marketing or WordPress, you're free to post a message or a request on our meetup. Actually, you have to send it to me, and I'll post it, and you'll likely get a response from somebody or multiple people that can help you with whatever your issue is. And that's entirely free.
I got a question. Cody, are you looking for employment, or do you already have employment? You own a cybersecurity? Oh, okay, you have your own firm. Okay. Because I know large companies looking for somebody.
They wouldn't want to hire him. No, I'm only kidding.
You probably already know about it.
Is it called the U.S. government? No, we won't talk about that. Pat, did you have a question? No. Okay. So, any other questions? Okay. Okay. Grab the mic, or would you rather take this mic?
Oh, please. Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep pulling.
Thank you. What I took from this tonight, because it is time consuming to some degree, and you are kind of shooting in the dark at first because it's something you're not familiar with. But the one thing I took from this is that you have to be really clear who your customer is or who you want to target. Otherwise, you're going to be lost in cyberspace and down that rabbit hole, wasting your time unless you're clear about who you're trying to get. You know, who do you want to target? Because even though you can pull all these emails, many of them are you going to be useless to you. So I'd like to hear maybe a comment or two from any of the ladies that presented tonight. What was it that you decided how you targeted a particular customer? And you may have more than one type. I'm aware of that.
I think what you said is absolutely true, because after I did this exercise with Don and I bought the license to Sales Navigator, I went in and thought I'll have a little play myself on how to do that. And I didn't actually end up running the thing because it just came up with like exactly what you said. If you make it too broad, you end up with a bunch of names that you know are going to be not worthwhile. The other thing that, I don't know, Don, whether you've noticed this, but I started getting updates also, like on almost like your keyword thing. I started getting emails that would tell me that, you know, that so-and-so's posted something or other. And, you know, like I didn't even have it on my list, but they had connected by my search that, oh, I might have popped in looking for vets. Okay, so that wasn't even in my criteria that I put in. But then you look at a lot of these industries and you realize, like, I need to know exactly what title you are. I don't need the secretary out of that list, that company. I need somebody more defined than that. So I agree 100% with what you said about having to know who your target customer is. That's a really important aspect, because you could, especially like with Duck Soup, that takes 29 seconds or 26 seconds per search. If you were about to give it thousands of names, you'd be there forever and they may not be worthwhile for you. We've kind of decided, I think the comment that the gentleman gave me about targeting people that already invest, that's a really great one. I'm not 100% quite sure right now in my mind how I find those people by the criteria. But we had decided that what we were going to do was, we've had a far better response from investors who live in the local area where we may have a project. I mean, they're in all multiple places, but we're, like, for example, if we've got one in, Fort Worth, Texas, people that live in that region will like to get in a car and go drive by and, you know, see it in person. So we get a better response from those. So we've decided that we will start to, like, as an experiment while we get used to this, to start to target you know, like, not that we won't do others, but we just, I want to, well, like I said, my background's in a statistician, so I like experimentation. So I really want to be able to test out, you know, what kind of works best for us and try to focus that in, because I think we have to do that in some form or other, just like the Lynne did with the, no, Susan, she did with like splitting her list in half and trying this with that group and that with that group. I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation that's going to come alongside and in parallel to what we're doing with all of this. But it's not that hard to actually learn how to do. I think it's quite easy. So I would encourage people to give it a go, because it's really not that bad.
Thank you. My thought was that it doesn't matter initially what tool we pick until we define the customer. And as I said, we can have more than one type of customer. So let's start with one group in particular and then find the tools and where you're going to market. What LinkedIn is good for may not be good for another group of people.
I think if I was going to hold a special program for pharmaceutical and healthcare people, this would help me define names and emails of people that are in the Pfizers, the Mercks, the AstraZenecas, that I might take a little bit longer finding. We also support veterans, and we had a veteran program, career information panel last year that was extremely successful. We're going to run a second annual in the fall. So I can see how this might be helpful, or I can find employers that definitely support and sponsor veterans. Example, Comcast Military. So I think, you know, I've learned a lot of things from this that I didn't know before. I've heard of duck soup, but I've never seen a live demo of it. So I really enjoyed that. And I have one other idea before Susan pipes in. Since Don has Slido up, and since the Where's the Money didn't seem to be a popular topic, why don't you type in some of your ideas of what you would like to hear for speakers, and then that'll come back to Don, and he can, you know, share that information with the advisory committee, and we'll see what we can come up with.
I was going to say something else about multiple things. Besides doing it for business, I also belong to Rotary, and we're doing a fundraising thing it's a 5-mile run around Newtown Square in May. And I've been trying to get them into advertising. So exactly like what you said, multiple things. We need to find a list of potential runners, a potential group of sponsors that live very locally, and then also maybe a larger group of people who may want to just donate for the cause. So I think, yes, you can just tailor away to your heart's content, really, with this.
So for the web developers in the room, show of hands, how many people are web developers? Okay, a number. So instead of just putting your shingle out there and saying, I build websites, because lots of people build websites, pick the kinds of businesses that you either built websites for successfully or want to build websites for. Like, for example, Denise is interested in websites for real estate brokers, right? Is that right? And Tom might be an expert on bakeries. Or wet socks. That's your favorite one, right? Wet socks, right? Or bakeries or something. Anyway, by really micro-targeting your area of skill website-wise, or you can have multiple such targets, you can use these tools to find all the bakers or all the real estate agents, for example, or I'm trying to think of, or wet sock people or what have you. And then just go, right, Carrie? So what would an example be of a website that you built, Carrie? Carrie, right?
We do a lot of websites for professional practices, lawyers, accountants, doctors, CPAs, those type of professional practices.
Right. So if you just had a generalized email list and you send it out and say, we specialize in legal practice websites, that email might go to who knows who, you know. But instead, if you had a focused list of we'll call IT managers for large law firms. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. I'm sure you could find that on LinkedIn. Really micro target that market and tell your story. You'll get a much better result than just blasting out the general email to a general list. So just as an example. Yes, sir.
Don makes a very good point, but getting back to your point, I get asked a lot when I do sales consulting, tell me about this ideal customer profile. How do we figure out who our ideal customer profile is? And what we generally do is we sit back with our spouse or a good friend and say, now, who'd want to buy our product? I think it's not important what you think. Okay. The way to do it is go to an existing customer, what Don's saying. If I was building a website for a baker, not just bakers, I would go back to the people I did websites for that were bakers. And I'd say, tell me about yourself. Oh, I'm over 45. I've got 2 kids, so-and-so. I've got $100,000 in the bank. I've got diabetes. Whatever criteria that person has, that's your ideal profile. And that's the person to look for. And I'm telling you, as strange as it sounds, and I've seen companies as small as startups or as big as Microsoft that I've worked with that don't get that. They try to sit back, some marketing people try to say, who wants our product? And they design a Slim Jim or a logo based upon what they think somebody is, as opposed to go to your existing base, find out about them and profile them, then search for that. That's why I gave you the suggestion is if you're looking for somebody who's already invested in a bunch of townhouses like the one Lynne lives in, that's who your ideal profile is, then go to those projects. Well, let's go back to your running thing. There's a company called SCI Investments. I don't know if you ever heard of them. In June, they're doing a giant run. They do it every year. There's 250 people who have signed up already for it. If you go to them and say, the person who runs it says, look, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it around Newtown Square. Could you give me your list so that I can just let them know that we're doing the same thing they do in the heartbeat? Same. I will. You can come see me. Okay?
Yeah,
so,
the concept is really difficult to understand. Go to where your customer is. That's really the challenge. And
if the Willie Sutton story?
Was that?
Remember the Willie Sutton story? There was
go where the
there was a
money
bank
is.
robber back
That's
in
right.
the 30s who was the most successful bank robber in the world. This is a true story. And they couldn't catch him, but he was really, really great at robbing banks. So it blew their mind. They finally caught him, and they said, we got to find out why people rob banks and do something about it. So I got a bunch of psychologists. They sat him down. They were going to question him for hours to find out what kind of psyche is involved with someone who wants to rob banks. And they said, Willie, why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is.
So the very first thing we did with each of the volunteers for this demonstration tonight is we spent a lot of time talking about their customer profile, and that's what each of you should do. And if you aren't clear about what your customer profile is, then do what this gentleman just said, which is go talk to your customers and ask them what their profile is and who they think their other customers might be for you that are like them. And frankly, ask them for referrals, but that's a whole other meeting, a whole other conversation, which we should probably have a meeting on referrals. I spent many years doing that. Anyway, that's outside the scope of this meeting. But getting your customer profile is really the number one. And then choosing the right database and choosing the right tools and so on is the next step. But getting the profile is really critical. In Susan's case, when she first came to me and she said, I want to find people that are interested in buying T-shirts about gazzy Boston Terriers, I was a little stumped. I didn't know who that customer base was, but we finally came up with a way of getting them.
It's based on the niche, not the profile.
That's right.
Of the person,
Yeah, that's right. Okay,
And this really does work for any single business that you're in. So one of the things that I'm going to be using it for is I'm going to build a list of companies that have recently had a data breach. And the reason being is because I also do employee enterprise training. So you can pretty much guarantee that if somebody's recently experienced a breach, their departments are going to be looking to increase the security of their key staff, especially if they've already experienced the breach.
That's right. And in
if you're Coca-Cola and you just witnessed a breach, yeah, you would definitely want to contact Coca-Cola. But I want to go to 7-Up because guess what? They don't want to have happen to them, which has happened. Right now, if I was involved in the social media business, who's a prime prospect? You'll say Facebook. Too late. You already missed that. There's 10,000 people in there. It's looking for their data security. I go to LinkedIn right now.
That's right. In the case of data breach, you should set up a Google alert for data breach, and you'll be amazed at what you're going to find. And what's the easiest way to find somebody's competitor? Do you know how to do that? It's amazing what I'll tell you if you don't know.
Easiest way to find their competitor?
Yeah. How do you find somebody's competitor? You just say competitors to Coca-Cola in Google, and they all come up. Unbelievable.
You can also go to Reference USA and put in Coca-Cola, and you will get an NAICS and SIC code, and then you put that SIC and NAICS code in to get the competitors.
And Hoover's as well. Yes, another one. But just do it with Google.
Yeah, and again, getting back to that ideal customer profile, one of my clients is a fitting company. They sell fittings that go on the end of hoses that go in big oil company things. Well, when those fittings break or that hose goes over, it could cause someone's life. But it also, if you put an oil refinery down for 24 hours, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars. Okay, these salesmen who go out there, they're going to purchasing agents and saying, would you like to have this fitting because it's not going to break? Is that the person who really cares? They started going to legal counsel, and they started going to the controller. Why would I do that if I sold fittings? Because they're the people who really care, not because a purchasing agent says I'm going to save 30 cents by buying a cheaper fitting. Legal counsel says it's going to cost me undue litigation and thousands and millions of dollars. So you got to really hone in on that. You couldn't be absolutely right. Selling is all about finding that ideal customer profile.
So it's interesting that you're bringing up these ideas. Most of what we've talked about here at the consortium are ways of doing what I would call marketing. But the idea of selling, which is actually getting the order, is a mystery, and I don't mean any offense to anybody in the room here, but it's a mystery to most people, especially the younger people. We're roughly the same age, and we know what selling is all about. But the younger people think that everything in their life is going to come through that little black box called a mobile phone. All their social relationships, all their business relationships, all their financial relationships. Guess what, boys and girls? You're not going to make sales. You've got to know how to sell. You're going to have to know how to talk to people and make the close. It's not all going to be somebody clicking on your website and giving you money. And so sales is a really big deal, and most folks sadly
and if you want
don't
to
really know about
differentiate
that.
yourself for this group here, if you're a website developer, if you think about how websites started, they started back with the yellow pages. You remember the yellow pages, big phone book? Someone used to go around and say, would you like to put an ad in the yellow pages? All right, so then all of a sudden the internet came out and they said, would you like us, what we call now a static website page? And think that somebody would have nothing else to do or just going to surf the web and see if they could find you. It doesn't work that way. I have a very successful website guy that I work with, and all he does is talk about, before he draws one line or writes one line of code, he says, who are you trying to sell to and what is appealing to them? And that's what you're talking about, this whole organization, how the groups don't get together.
Exactly. And the website is the physical embodiment of their business strategy and their business model. It is not, you don't start with a website, you end with a website. But that's another evening. That's another workshop. Okay, no, that's fine. We should get together and do a workshop on this.
Don, I think we found our next speaker instead of the finding the money. I would suggest this gentleman named Rich Lucia.
I think that's, well, let's see. Rich, do you volunteer? Okay, we have a volunteer. Okay, it's 10 minutes after 9. Does anybody have any final questions? If not, I want to thank our speakers. Let's give them each a great round of applause, please. Thank you very much.